Karen tried to bribe Judge Judy with tears. 47 seconds later, she was fined $10,000. But what you're about to see isn't just another courtroom meltdown. Hidden in those crocodile tears was a calculated scheme so twisted, so manipulative, that even Judge Judy couldn't have predicted what Karen was really trying to pull off. The courtroom buzzed with that electric tension you feel right before lightning strikes, the kind that makes your skin crawl and your heart race. The familiar wood-paneled walls of America's most famous TV courtroom seemed to pulse with anticipation, every seat filled with spectators who thought they were just witnessing another routine case about unpaid rent. Before we dive into this incredible case, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love seeing where my viewers are around the world. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss more unbelievable cases like this one. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. Judge Judy sat behind her imposing bench, her signature reading glasses perched perfectly on her nose, her silver hair styled with military precision. After 3 decades of cutting through lies and exposing frauds, she'd developed an almost supernatural ability to smell deception the moment it walked through her courtroom doors. Her dark eyes, sharp as surgical blades, swept across the room with the confidence of someone who'd seen every con, every scam, every desperate attempt at manipulation that the human mind could conjure. Her black robes hung like armor, and her hands rested calmly on the bench, fingers that had pointed at thousands of liars and phonies over the years. At the defendant's table sat Karen, a woman in her mid-40s whose designer handbag probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Her perfectly styled blonde hair framed a face that had already begun its practiced transformation into the mask of a grieving victim. She clutched a handful of tissues like they were precious currency, her manicured fingers trembling with what looked like genuine emotion, but felt as authentic as a $3 bill. Her expensive blazer and carefully chosen jewelry told a story that completely contradicted the sob story she was preparing to unleash. But Karen had something else up her sleeve, something so audacious, so incredibly manipulative, that it would shock even the most cynical courtroom veterans. Across from her, the plaintiff sat quietly, a working-class woman whose weathered hands and tired eyes spoke of real struggle, real hardship. She'd saved for months just to take this case to court, never imagining she'd become a witness to one of the most explosive moments in Judge Judy's legendary career. The gallery behind them was packed with curious onlookers, reporters with their notebooks ready, and court TV addicts who lived for these moments of televised justice. The cameramen adjusted their angles, sensing something bigger than usual was about to unfold. But none of them, not even Judge Judy herself, could have predicted that Karen wasn't just planning to cry her way out of paying what she owed. She had orchestrated something far more sinister, a manipulation so elaborate that it would take Judge Judy's legendary detective skills to uncover the truth. The tissues in Karen's hands weren't just props for fake tears. They were part of a scheme that went deeper than anyone in that courtroom could imagine, a calculated attack on justice itself that would push Judge Judy to deliver one of the most savage verbal beatdowns in television history. The air conditioning hummed quietly overhead, but the atmosphere was anything but cool. Tension crackled like electricity, and somewhere in the back of the room, a phone camera started recording what would soon become the most viral courtroom moment of the decade. Karen adjusted her position in her chair, her lips already beginning to quiver with practiced precision, completely unaware that she was about to walk into the buzzsaw of Judge Judy's wrath. The bailiff, Petrie Hawkins Bird, stood at attention, his decades of experience telling him that this case was about to go sideways in a spectacular fashion. Judge Judy cleared her throat, the sound cutting through the courtroom like a warning shot. Her eyes locked onto Karen with the intensity of a predator sizing up its prey, and for just a moment, a flicker of something dangerous passed across her face. She'd built her reputation on exposing liars and frauds, but what she was about to uncover would test even her legendary patience. The case was about to begin, and Karen was about to learn that you don't just mess with Judge Judy's courtroom. You definitely don't try to manipulate the queen of television justice, and you absolutely never ever underestimate what happens when Judge Judy discovers you've been playing games with the truth. If you want to see more moments where entitled people get exactly what they deserve, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. Now let's dive into how this all started. This wasn't just another case about unpaid rent or a broken contract. What was about to unfold in Judge Judy's courtroom would become a defining moment in television justice history, a collision between old-school accountability and modern-day entitlement that would leave everyone breathless. The stakes couldn't have been higher, not just for Karen and the plaintiff, but for the very soul of what justice means in America. Karen had walked into that courtroom thinking she was the smartest person in the room, armed with a manipulation strategy so elaborate that she'd actually rehearsed it in front of a mirror for weeks. She'd studied Judge Judy's cases, analyzed her weaknesses, and crafted what she believed was the perfect emotional storm to get herself off the hook. But Judge Judy's reputation hadn't been built on sympathy or sentimentality. For over 2 decades, she'd been the final boss of television courtrooms, the last stop for people who thought they could charm, manipulate, or sob their way out of consequences. Her track record was legendary. Wall Street executives entitled celebrities cunning con artists. They'd all tried to outsmart her, and they'd all learned the hard way that Judge Judy Shendlin was nobody's fool. She'd seen every trick, heard every sob story, and demolished every attempt at courtroom theater with surgical precision. Her courtroom was where manipulation went to die, where crocodile tears dried up faster than puddles in the desert. Karen's case was supposedly simple. A landlord-tenant dispute over $5,000 in unpaid rent and damages. The plaintiff, Maria Santos, a hard-working single mother who cleaned offices at night to make ends meet, had trusted Karen with her small rental property, after Karen spun a tale about being a struggling entrepreneur who just needed a break. Maria had even lowered the security deposit because Karen's story had tugged at her heartstrings. But what Maria didn't know was that Karen made this her business, targeting sympathetic landlords with elaborate sob stories, living rent-free for months while building ironclad legal defenses that would make any eviction a nightmare. The real stakes went far beyond the money. Maria had put her life savings into that rental property, dreaming of financial security for her teenage daughter's college fund. Every month Karen didn't pay meant Maria worked double shifts, skipped meals, and watched her dreams crumble. She'd sold her grandmother's jewelry just to cover the mortgage payments while Karen lived comfortably in her property, posting Instagram photos from expensive restaurants and shopping sprees. The injustice burned in Maria's chest like acid, and this courtroom was her last hope for any kind of justice. But Karen had calculated every angle. She'd researched Judge Judy's soft spots, identified the emotional triggers that might create reasonable doubt, and prepared a performance that would make Oscar winners jealous. Her plan wasn't just to avoid paying the money she owed. It was to completely flip the script, to turn herself into the victim and Maria into the villain. She'd brought props, staged evidence, and even coached fake witnesses who were sitting in that gallery, ready to support her fabricated version of events. The courtroom had become a battlefield between 2 different Americas. On one side stood Maria, representing millions of hardworking people who played by the rules, honored their commitments, and believed that honesty still mattered. On the other side sat Karen, the embodiment of a culture that valued cleverness over character, manipulation over morality, and getting away with it over doing what's right. The gallery sensed this wasn't just about rent money. This was about whether truth still had power in a world where the loudest sob story often won. Judge Judy understood the stakes better than anyone. Every case that came before her bench was a test of the justice system itself. If manipulators like Karen could successfully con their way out of consequences, then honest people like Maria would stop believing in fairness altogether. Her courtroom was often the last place where ordinary people could find justice without expensive lawyers or years of legal battles. The responsibility weighed on her shoulders like a sacred trust. Karen's confidence was about to be tested in ways she couldn't imagine. She thought she'd found Judge Judy's weakness, thought she'd discovered the perfect emotional key to unlock sympathy and escape accountability. But what Karen didn't realize was that Judge Judy had been building toward this moment her entire career. Every liar she'd exposed, every fraud she'd demolished, every manipulator she destroyed had prepared her for someone exactly like Karen. The stage was set for an epic confrontation between calculated deception and uncompromising truth, and only one of them would walk away victorious. Judge Judy's gavel came down with the authority of thunder, and Karen's performance began immediately. Before Judge Judy could even finish reading the case details, Karen's eyes were already glistening with perfectly timed tears. Her voice cracked with practiced precision as she interrupted. "Your Honor, I know this looks bad, but you have to understand what I've been through." The tissues came out like clockwork, dabbing at tears that seemed to appear on command. Her entire body language shifted into victim mode, shoulders slumping, voice dropping to that wounded whisper that had fooled landlords across 3 different states. "I'm a single mother." "Your Honor," Karen began, her voice trembling with manufactured emotion. "My ex-husband abandoned us, left me with nothing but debt and 2 beautiful children who depend on me for everything." She gestured toward the gallery where 2 well-dressed teenagers sat, their expensive sneakers and designer clothes completely contradicting their mother's poverty narrative. Judge Judy's eyes followed the gesture, her expression already showing the first signs of skepticism. Those kids looked like they'd never missed a meal, let alone lived in the kind of desperate poverty Karen was describing. The sob story escalated with surgical precision. Karen painted herself as a victim of domestic violence, A struggling entrepreneur whose business had been destroyed by the pandemic, a woman so desperate that she'd been forced to choose between feeding her children and paying rent. Her voice rose and fell like a symphony of suffering, each pause perfectly timed for maximum emotional impact. "I never wanted to hurt Maria," she said, looking directly at the plaintiff with eyes that sparkled with fake remorse. "She's such a good person, and I know she trusted me. But when you're watching your children go hungry, when you're choosing between medicine and groceries, sometimes you have to make impossible choices." Judge Judy sat in stony silence, her pen tapping against her bench in a rhythm that anyone who'd watched her show would recognize as a warning sign. Her dark eyes moved between Karen's theatrical performance and the evidence folder in front of her, her expression growing more skeptical by the second. She'd heard variations of this same story hundreds of times before, but something about Karen's delivery felt different, more calculated, more rehearsed than the usual desperate defendants who stumbled through their excuses. Karen pressed harder, sensing what she mistook for judicial sympathy. "Your Honor, I've been sleeping in my car some nights just so my children could have beds. I've sold everything I own, even my grandmother's wedding ring, just to put food on the table." Her tears flowed more freely now, and she pulled out a photo of 2 children that she'd strategically placed in her purse. "These are my babies, Your Honor. Everything I did for them. I know it was wrong not to pay the rent, but a mother will do anything to protect her children." The gallery watched in fascination as Karen's performance reached its crescendo. Some of the younger spectators seemed genuinely moved, whispering sympathetically among themselves. But the older courtroom veterans, the ones who'd seen Judge Judy dismantle countless sob stories, exchanged knowing glances. They could sense the storm brewing behind Judge Judy's calm exterior, the way her jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, the way her fingers drummed against the bench like a countdown timer to an explosion. Karen had no idea she was about to walk into the buzzsaw of Judge Judy's legendary wrath. Judge Judy's silence was deafening. Her pen stopped its warning rhythm, and she leaned back in her chair with the kind of calm that made seasoned lawyers nervous. Karen mistook this stillness for compassion, completely missing the storm brewing behind those sharp eyes. The courtroom held its breath as Judge Judy simply stared, letting Karen's theatrical performance hang in the air like smoke from a dying fire. "Your Honor," Karen ventured, her voice still trembling with manufactured emotion. "I know you understand what it's like to fight for your family." She was fishing now, trying to connect with Judge Judy on some imaginary maternal level, completely oblivious to the fact that she was digging her own grave with every word. Judge Judy's expression remained granite still, but her fingers began a slow, methodical shuffle through the papers in front of her. The silence stretched like a taut wire ready to snap. Karen's confidence started to waver as she realized her Oscar-worthy performance wasn't getting the reaction she'd expected. The tears that had flowed so easily moments before began to slow, her voice losing some of its practiced quiver. She glanced nervously at the gallery, where her teenage children suddenly looked uncomfortable, shifting in their seats as if sensing their mother had miscalculated. Judge Judy pulled out a manila folder with deliberate precision, her movements so slow and methodical they seemed almost theatrical. But this wasn't theater. This was strategy. She opened it carefully, revealing what looked like bank statements, photographs, and official documents. Her eyes scanned the contents with the intensity of a prosecutor reviewing evidence before delivering a closing argument. "Ma'am," Judge Judy finally spoke, her voice so quiet it was almost a whisper. The entire courtroom leaned forward to catch every word. "Before you continue with your story, I want you to know that I've been doing this for a very long time." Her eyes locked onto Karen's with laser precision. "And in all my years on this bench, I've learned that the truth has a very specific sound. Your story—" She paused, letting the silence build like pressure in a volcano. "Your story doesn't sound like truth." Judge Judy's eyes turned to ice as she opened that manila folder with the precision of a surgeon making the first incision. "Karen," she said, her voice cutting through the courtroom like a blade, "let me tell you what your story actually sounds like." The first document emerged from the folder, a bank statement that Judge Judy held up like a smoking gun. "This is your bank account from last month. The same month you claim you were sleeping in your car and selling your grandmother's jewelry." Karen's face went white as Judge Judy continued with surgical precision. $47,000. That's your current balance, ma'am. $47,000 while you're telling me you couldn't afford to pay $5,000 in rent. The courtroom erupted in gasps, and Karen's mouth fell open like a fish out of water. Her perfectly rehearsed tears dried up instantly, replaced by the kind of panic that comes when your entire world implodes in real time. But Judge Judy wasn't even close to finished. "And these," she said, pulling out a stack of photographs, "are screenshots from your Instagram account. Posted 3 days ago." The photos showed Karen at an expensive spa resort, cocktails in hand, designer sunglasses gleaming in the sun. #blessed, #living my best life, #grateful for this amazing vacation. Judge Judy's voice dripped with contempt as she read Karen's own captions back to her. Does this look like a woman sleeping in her car to you? The devastation was total and merciless. Karen tried to stammer out an explanation, but Judge Judy raised her hand for silence. Oh, we're not done yet, sweetheart. The next document made Karen physically recoil. This is a rental application you filed 2 weeks ago for a luxury apartment in downtown Manhattan. Rent, $8,000 a month. You listed your monthly income as $75,000. Judge Judy leaned forward like a predator closing in for the kill. So which is it, Karen? Are you the struggling single mother who can't afford rent? Or are you the high-income professional shopping for luxury apartments? The courtroom was dead silent except for the sound of Karen's world crashing down around her. Judge Judy pulled out the final piece of evidence and Karen's face turned gray with terror. And this is the most interesting part of all. It was a business registration document. KLM Consulting Services registered to Karen Louise Morrison. Your business, Karen. The business that specializes in tenant rights advocacy and helping people avoid eviction. Judge Judy's voice rose with righteous fury. You're not a victim, ma'am. You're a professional scammer who makes a living teaching other people how to steal from landlords. The gallery exploded in outraged murmurs, and several people pointed accusingly at Karen, who looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. Judge Judy stood up, her black robes flowing like the wings of an avenging angel. You walked into my courtroom with your crocodile tears and your sob story, thinking you could manipulate me the same way you've manipulated countless other victims. You thought I was just another mark in your con game. Karen tried one last desperate attempt to speak, but Judge Judy's voice thundered across the courtroom. Don't you dare open your mouth again until I'm finished talking. You have disrespected this court. You have disrespected the plaintiff. And you have disrespected every single person who has ever faced real hardship. Judge Judy's finger pointed at Karen like a sword of justice. Your rent scam ends today, and so does your freedom to manipulate this legal system. Can you believe that just happened? If this kind of instant karma gives you life, you need to smash that like button right now, and stick around because Judge Judy isn't done with Karen yet. The courtroom sat in stunned silence as Judge Judy's words echoed off the walls like thunder after lightning. Karen's elaborate house of lies had collapsed in spectacular fashion, but Judge Judy wasn't finished delivering justice. She looked directly into the camera, speaking not just to Karen, but to every would-be scammer watching at home. Let me be crystal clear about something, she began, her voice carrying the weight of 3 decades of courtroom wisdom. This is what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness, when you think tears can wash away accountability. Karen slumped in her chair, her designer blazer wrinkled, her perfect makeup streaked with real tears now. The woman who had walked into that courtroom with supreme confidence was now a broken shell, exposed for what she truly was. Judge Judy continued her moral demolition. You didn't just steal money from Maria. You stole her trust, her peace of mind, her belief that people can be decent to each other. You took advantage of her good heart and turned it into a weapon against her. The deeper lesson was clear to everyone watching. This wasn't just about one landlord and one tenant. This was about the erosion of basic human decency, about a culture where manipulation had become more valued than honesty. Judge Judy's voice softened slightly as she turned to Maria, the real victim. Ma'am, I want you to know that there are still people in this world who believe in doing what's right. Your trust wasn't misplaced because you're a good person. It was betrayed because she's not. The gallery nodded in agreement, many wiping away tears of their own, moved by Judge Judy's defense of ordinary decency. Karen's scam had represented everything wrong with modern society. The idea that being clever enough to cheat somehow made you smarter than everyone else. But Judge Judy had just proven that truth and preparation would always triumph over manipulation and lies. Judge Judy wasn't finished with her verdict. The courtroom held its breath as she delivered the final blow that would make Karen's nightmare complete. Not only are you going to pay Maria every penny of the $5,000 you owe her, Judge Judy declared, her voice ringing with absolute authority, but I'm also fining you $10,000 for contempt of court. The gavel came down like a thunderclap, sealing Karen's fate with the finality of divine judgment. Your manipulation, your lies, and your complete disrespect for this legal system have consequences, ma'am. Real consequences. Karen's face crumpled as the reality hit her. $15,000 total, 3 times what she'd tried to steal through her elaborate scam. Her teenage children buried their faces in their hands, mortified that their mother's criminal behavior was being broadcast to millions of viewers. The gallery erupted in applause, a spontaneous celebration of justice served hot and fresh. Within hours, the clip exploded across social media like wildfire. Judge Judy destroys professional scammer trended worldwide, racking up millions of views as people shared the moment of pure courtroom karma. Karen became the poster child for entitled manipulation, her face plastered across memes that would haunt her forever. Comments poured in from landlords everywhere, thanking Judge Judy for exposing the kind of predator they dealt with daily. Maria walked out of that courtroom with more than just her money back. She had her faith in justice restored, proof that sometimes the system really does work for ordinary people who play by the rules. Judge Judy had reminded the world that truth still mattered, that preparation trumped performance, and that no amount of crocodile tears could wash away the consequences of deliberate cruelty. The lesson was unmistakable and eternal. In Judge Judy's courtroom, justice isn't just blind, it's brilliant. And for Karen, a woman who built her life on exploiting others' kindness, this was the day the bill finally came due with interest. And that's how you deal with a Karen trying to manipulate the system. If you loved watching this entitled behavior get shut down, you absolutely have to subscribe for more incredible courtroom moments. Hit that notification bell so you never miss when justice gets served. What did you think about Judge Judy's handling of this case? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and don't forget to like this video if you believe tears shouldn't buy you out of consequences. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one where we dive into another unbelievable moment of instant karma.